Hey there, I'm Patrick Franco, and I'm here with Melly, who will be our student today as we look at Ustrasana, Camel Pose. Now this is a big back bend, and as we know with these big back bends, you'll typically see them towards the end of a yoga class when your body is hopefully well prepared and warmed up. Specifically, this back bend stretches and strengthens a number of different parts of the body. Specifically, it strengthens the glutes and the hamstring muscles. It strengthens the muscles of the low back, the upper back, shoulders, and the cervical spine. It stretches the fronts of your thighs, quadriceps, hip flexors, as well as the side body, the spinal muscles, and the entirety of the torso. So we're gonna go ahead and look at Ustrasana, Camel Pose now. And Melly's gonna start standing on her shins. And she's gonna turn to the side. So classically, the feet and the knees are together, but that's typically a little challenging for most of us on the lumbar spine, on the low back as we back bend. So we're gonna do it with our knees hip distance wide, which means that the knees are gonna be right underneath the hips, and then her shins and her feet are gonna start by pointing backwards. Ideally, you'd like to have the tops of your ankle and foot pressing down and the tops of the feet stretching back. You can see that Melly has already started with her hands on her hips, and one of the great things this does is it helps accentuate the length of the side body, and the side body is from the outer hip up to the armpit. So she's going to inhale and lift and lengthen her side body first. The next thing it also helps do is that when we go into the back bend, it makes sure that the tailbone stays down away from the lumbar spine so that the low back is nice and long and doesn't get compressed. So she's going to press her shins, her ankles, her feet down. She's going to lift and lengthen the sides of her trunk, and then she's going to coil her upper back in. When she's ready, she'll take her hands to the tops of her feet or the soles of her feet. Now you can see that her hands and fingertips are pointed in the same direction as her toes. Once that happens, she's now using her hands pressing down to get the upper arms to firm her shoulder blades into her back ribs into her back, which opens up her chest. She let her head go so her throat can open, and notice that her hips are still over her knees. When she's ready, she can bring her hands to her hips and then press her shins down and come back up. It's nice to sit back on your heels and take a rest for a moment. That is such a big back bend. And again, it's really important to ensure that the low back is not compromised when you're working on this shape. And that really means that you have to lengthen your side body and firm your tailbone in. So one way that we can address that if the version that Melly just did was too big of a back bend is we can make it a little bit more accessible by curling the toes under. So Melly's gonna stand up on her shins again, and now instead of pointing the toes back, she has her toes curled under, and then she'll bring her hands to her hips. The benefit of the toes curling under is that she'll access her hamstrings and her glute muscles more easily before going into the back bend. So she's gonna press off the ball of her foot, lift and lengthen her side body. Now, when she's ready, she'll go back, and then she'll take her hands to her heels or her Achilles. And she'll continue to press off the ball of the foot, which still makes those legs very active. The arms still help lift and support the opening of her chest. And guess what? By curling the toes under, the heels aren't so far away. When she's ready, she'll bring her hands to her hips and come on up, and then she'll take a rest. So that's still a pretty big back bend. One other option I love to give is to do this pose with a bolster resting on the heels or the Achilles. So Melly's gonna come up, we have a bolster here, and she's gonna start simply by putting it in that place. So we already shortened the distance between the hands and the heels by curling the toes under, and one additional way to do that is to put your hands on this bolster instead of finding your heels. So we'll start with the hands on the hips. She'll press her shins down. She'll inhale, lift her chest, keep the tailbone firming in as she coils the upper back in. And then when she's ready, she'll find that bolster, and then she's gonna press the bolster down to open up the top of her chest. The head is really the last piece. So the head going back is a natural extension of the rest of the spine. And just so know that for yourself is that your head will rest where your chest is letting it rest. When she's ready, she'll bring her hands to her hips, come up, and then she can sit back on the bolster. All right, so that was 3 versions of Ustrasana, which is a very active back bend that you'll see towards the end of a yoga class. And there's a couple ways that we can look at it, each one a little bit more accessible, especially to preserve the lumbar spine, the low back. All right, we'll see you on the mat in the next pose.